Julia mentioned those questionnaires. Let's bring in Court TV anchor Michael Ayala, who has been looking at the questionnaire that the jurors have to fill out. Tell us, first of all, about this questionnaire.
All right, Vinny, first and foremost, it's a fascinating document, right? It's a substantial document as well. It's about 16 pages long, just shy of about 100 questions, some of them multiple choice, some asked for written out answers. It has been sent out to potential jury pool members in Hennepin County, but exactly how many have been sent out, that has not been made public, so we don't know that number. Now, one of our producers and myself filled it out. We actually sat down and did it. It took us each about an hour and 20 to 30 minutes to complete, so that's substantial. The questionnaire is, in fact, created by the court, Vinny. Both the prosecution and defense send in proposed questions, and then the court calls together what it believes to be a fair questionnaire. It presents really for jurors a safe way for potential jurors to express opinions that they may believe are unpopular, especially in light of the recent events in Minneapolis and around the world seeking to reform police. Now, just basically, Vinny, there are 6 categories of questions. First of all, knowledge of the case. Right? Then there's media habits, social media, where do you get your news? Police contacts. Have you been arrested? Do you know anyone who works for the police? Personal background, that's self-explanatory. Opinions regarding the justice system. Interesting questions there. We'll get to that later. And trial length and ability to serve. Now, on that issue, the questionnaire asked jurors if they would have a problem with a 3-week jury selection and a 3 to 4 week trial. Now, it also asked jurors if they would have a problem being sequestered for deliberations or for part of the trial.
All right, so I trust your analysis of this, having covered so many cases. What jumped out to you from this questionnaire?
All right, Vinny, there are a few things that did in fact jump out to me. First and foremost, the very first question, it's under the knowledge of the case section. It asked potential jurors to write down a full account of what they recall having seen or heard in the media. And then there's a blank page. And so even when I was filling this out, someone who's in communications, it was daunting. So for the average person, I'm sure that was quite daunting. Now, the questionnaire also goes on to ask questions like, how do you feel about George Floyd? Or how do you feel about the defendants? And how do you feel about Black Lives Matter? Or Blue Lives Matter, for that matter? And then it gives you a range from very positive to very negative with sort of neutral in the middle. It also asks, have you or someone you know participated in the protests? And then later on, it also asks if potential jurors feel the system is biased towards minorities or if police are more likely to respond with force to black people than whites. And I'll be honest with you, Vinny, after reading it, now I do come from a defense bent, right? But I came away feeling like the document was not favorable to the defendants. There was this negativity towards the defendants that sort of flowed through the document. So I wanted to check my feelings there with a defense attorney out of Minneapolis, Joe Tamburino, to get his take on the questionnaire. Here's what he had to say.
Well, there's one glaring thing that is absent, and that is the presumption of innocence. How did this document go through 4 defense attorneys, judge, law clerk? How did everyone look at this document and not say, where is the question on presuming innocence of the defendants? Because when those defendants, any defendant, walks into a courtroom on a criminal case, that jury must presume them innocent unless or until they find that the state has proved the case beyond a reasonable doubt. That question has to be in the questionnaire. Not there at all. So that's a glaring example of something that should have been in there, but they dropped the ball. And the questions are sort of tailored in a way where it's like something evil happened here, which something bad did happen here. But again, you have the presumption of innocence, and they're almost skewed in a way where it's against the defense.
There is certainly that note to it. So one final note, Vinny, there is a question asking jurors if there's any other reason that they thought they didn't want to serve. And I can imagine many will feel like they don't want to take on the burden of this case because really it has worldwide implications. So it's not going to be easy to find a jury here.
Yeah, I wonder what you put down for that question, Michael. All right. One of the attorneys filed an objection, didn't they?
Yes, they did. Last week, Thomas Plunkett, the attorney for Alexander King, he filed a motion seeking to have the questionnaire thrown out and a new one developed, and he wants that one sent out. He claims that he never got a chance to review it before it was sent out, and the document doesn't go far enough in rooting out bias. And it denies his client due process as a result, and he filed it as a supplement to his change of venue motion. Now, as far as the questions not going far enough, here's a quick example that he cites in his filing. This is a question from the final document, Vinny. From what you have seen or heard, do you have a general impression of the defendants? One, very negative, somewhat negative, neutral, somewhat positive, very positive, or other. And then it asks, why do you feel that way? So that's from the one that was actually sent out. This is the question that the defense proposed be asked on that issue. Based on what you have read, seen, or heard about George Floyd's death, do you believe, and then fill in the defendant's name, is definitely guilty of murder, probably guilty of murder, probably not guilty of murder, definitely not guilty of murder, or other. So you can see there it's like a matter of degree. Now, there's another question that the defense objects to here. And this question appears in bold type at the end of the knowledge of the case section of the questionnaire. And it says, no matter what you have seen or heard about this case, and no matter what opinions you might have formed, can you put aside all of that and decide this case only on the evidence you receive in court from the law and decide the case in a fair and impartial manner? You might ask, what's wrong with that? Well, according to the motion, this question basically drives potential jurors to answering in a socially acceptable way and then locks them into making it very difficult for lawyers then to root out the bias because people want to please. They read a question like that, they know where you're going, and of course they're going to want to think the best of themselves. They're going to say, of course. But that might not be the case. And Plunkett cites cases that say the court cannot allow a potential juror to judge their own impartiality. And that's exactly what that question does. So he wants that questionnaire thrown out and a new, more fair one developed.
Yeah, this is fascinating. I think the most challenging part may be, when you find those potential jurors, and I think there's going to be some who may have protested, may have put something up on their Facebook page, and whether or not there's a way to rehabilitate potential jurors like that. Because if not, that's a problem for prosecutors in this case. So jury selection is going to be absolutely fascinating. Yeah. Michael, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Now, only one of the defendants says this trial should go forward on March 8th, and that is Thomas Lane. Thomas's brother, Jim Lane, sat down with Court TV for the first time to talk publicly about his younger brother, his words for the Floyd family, and how he reacted to seeing that tragic video.
I distinctly remember seeing the video on the day that it occurred, and I remember saying, boy, I'm glad that wasn't Tom's call. And then he called me about 2 hours later. And what? And it's, it's just really surreal.
And tomorrow night, we'll bring you more of that exclusive interview right here. We will be right back.